The Battle for Willow Pond. I was halfway through my morning coffee when I heard a sharp thwack of a hammer against wood. At first, I thought a neighbor was fixing a deck or maybe building a birdhouse. But when I glanced out my kitchen window and saw three people in crisp blazers driving a stake into the edge of my backyard pond, my mug nearly slipped from my hand. One wore a flashy tie, another clutched a clipboard, and the third was bold enough to plant a sign reading Maple Grove HOA Reflection Pool, Community Property. My jaw tightened. My name's Henry Caldwell, a retired ecologist and amateur nature photographer, and that Pond Me private, spring-fed oasis had been mine longer than these HOA bureaucrats had been pushing paper. What started as a petty neighborhood dispute was about to erupt into the loudest, most chaotic, frog-filled standoff this suburban enclave had ever seen. 3 months earlier, I'd left the bustle of downtown to settle in Maple Grove, a quiet community on the edge of town. As a lifelong lover of nature, I wanted solitude and a slice of wilderness. I found it in a cozy cabin with a thick tree line and a pristine pond nestled in my backyard. It wasn't on any HOA map. It was natural, untouched, a haven for herons, turtles, and the occasional fox. The realtor called it Henry's Retreat when I signed the deed, and I thought I'd escaped the reach of meddling neighbors. For weeks, it was paradise. I set up trail cameras to capture wildlife, cataloged local frog species, and spent evenings by the water, lulled by their soft croaks. Then, one morning, a flyer appeared in my mailbox from the Maple Grove HOA, announcing community enhancement projects. I tossed it as land wasn't under their control, or so I thought. The trouble began with a knock. Standing on my porch was Evelyn Harper, the HOA president, her smile as stiff as her posture. Flanked by a burly man and a woman scribbling notes, she announced they were inspecting the community pond for a wellness initiative. "That's my pond," I said, stepping forward. "It's private, on my deed since the 80s. Evelyn's laugh was sharp, like nails on a chalkboard. "Our aerial survey shows it's in the community easement," she said, already marching toward my backyard. "We're reclassifying it as a reflection pool for aesthetic serenity." I was stunned. Not only were they wrong about the property lines, but they acted like they owned the place. I told them I'd look into it, and closed the door before my temper got the better of me. That night, I dug through county records. My survey map confirmed every inch of the pond was mine. I printed, highlighted, and laminated the documents, ready for round 2. But the next morning, 2 teenagers from the HOA were hammering a reflection pool sign into my lawn. I pulled it out, sent them scurrying, and thought that settled it. Then came the fairy lights. One evening, sipping tea on my porch, I noticed a soft glow around the pond. Solar-powered lights were strung through the trees, turning my wild sanctuary into a tacky wedding venue. Across the pond, Evelyn stood, filming a speech about community wellness. That was it. I didn't yell or call the cops. Instead, I made a plan, Operation Frog Frenzy. Step 1, frogs. As an ecologist, I knew frogs specifically, how loud bullfrogs could get during mating season. My pond was the perfect stage for chaos. I sourced native species from local conservatories, adjusted the water's pH for breeding, and added logs for croaking platforms. Then, I installed motion-triggered floodlights, bright, sterile beams that lit up the pond like a stadium every time a frog hopped. My sanctuary became a fortress of noise and light, legally untouchable and gloriously disruptive. Evelyn had no idea she'd just picked a fight with someone who could weaponize nature itself. The first week of Operation Frog Frenzy was subtle. I released a dozen bullfrogs and tadpoles I'd raised in my garage. By night 5, their croaks rivaled a rock concert. The floodlights kicked on with every ripple, bathing the pond in a harsh glow. Neighbors noticed. At 10 p.m., my phone rang. Evelyn, furious, accusing me of weaponizing wildlife and violating HOA rules. I reminded her that the pond was mine, and frogs were protected under county wildlife laws. She sputtered, citing a board vote to claim the pond, but had no legal proof. The next day, an HOA crew arrived to assess environmental damage. From my window, I watched them grimace at the cacophony, Evelyn in a sun hat like she was inspecting a landfill. I'd added hidden speakers looping recorded frog calls, blending seamlessly with the real ones. When they tried blasting opera to drown it out, I activated a low-frequency rumble speaker under my fence, sending their golf carts rolling downhill in a panic. The neighborhood split. Some found it hilarious, creating a Frog Rebellion social media page with videos of Evelyn's rants. Kids painted frog-shaped rocks, calling them swamp sentinels. My mailbox filled with thank you notes. Evelyn called an emergency HOA meeting, and I attended, armed with my laminated survey. She ranted about a pest-infested bog, but I countered with facts. The pond was mine, and their bylaws supported native wildlife. The room turned against her. A new board member suggested a legal review, and Evelyn snapped, losing her grip. Her next move was a red-inked HOA letter accusing me of introducing invasive species and light pollution. I countered with science. My colleague, Dr. Margaret Ellison, conducted a 3-day ecological survey, proving the pond's biodiversity was a suburban gem. My lights used wildlife-safe bulbs. Evelyn retaliated with 9 p.m. opera blasts from her balcony, so I shifted my frog call loop to 5 a.m., ruining her mornings. When she planted construction flags for a community meditation deck through my yard, I hit her with a cease and desist order, backed by aerial photos showing my pond predated the HOA. Then came her final act. One morning, I found dead frogs floating in my pond, the water reeking of bleach. Fury burned in my chest. My trail cameras caught Evelyn at 2:41 a.m., spraying a jug of chemicals and tossing it into the bushes. I called the police. They confirmed the pond was mine, collected samples, and arrested her for environmental damage and trespassing. The footage went viral, dubbed the Frog Massacre. Evelyn faced charges, a no-contact order, and mandatory environmental ethics classes. The HOA ousted her unanimously. I sued for property damage and ecological harm, and her reputation crumbled. The new HOA president, Clara Thompson, apologized and proposed a community eco-reserve initiative. I agreed, retaining full control. The pond healed, frogs returned, and I hosted wildlife talks for schools. At a Frog Fest event, neighbors celebrated with lanterns, music, and frog-shaped cookies. A documentary producer featured the saga in Neighbors from Hell, cementing its legacy. I wrote a children's book, Rusty the Frog vs. the HOA, a local hit. The pond became a protected habitat, marked by a bronze plaque, Henry's Haven, dedicated to native species and private stewardship. Below it, my chosen quote, "When they tried to silence the frogs, they only made them louder." Evelyn moved. Her house was sold at a loss. Her name became a neighborhood punchline. The community thrived, kids learned, and the frogs sang. Standing by the pond one evening, Clara joked about frog-themed yoga. We laughed, watching the water ripple under the moon. Peace wasn't silent, sight was victory, earned through brains, patience, and a touch of spite. What do you think? Was Henry's fight against injustice worth the chaos? Should he have escalated or sought peace sooner? Share your thoughts on standing up to bullies and protecting what's yours in the comments below. Let's hear your take on power, vengeance, and justice.